Agitation session. I'm Laurel Smith, AZNHA board member and Education Committee co-chair. Thank you for joining us today. A quick reminder about our conference upcoming on March 4th, 2022. In December, we began introducing our speakers along with details about registration and other information about the event. So please read the MailChimp newsletters that will appear in your inbox. And just to let you know, everyone will be muted to avoid noise disruptions during this session as we are recording. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the main presentation. So you may either put your questions at any time using the Zoom chat function or hold them until the open Q&A, at which time we will unmute everyone. And we're going to start today's session with a quick overview from our associate member, Lara and Scott Vineyard of Mobility Plus. Mobility Plus provides a myriad of equipment designed to assist your clients with their mobility needs and much more. Lara and Scott, please enlighten us.
Absolutely, thank you. So my name is Scott Vineyard, and this is...
Hi, I'm Lara.
My wife, Lara Vineyard, and just a quick introduction of who we are is, we play multiple roles within the company, but I'm an area developer for the state of Arizona. So Mobility Plus is a franchise that's out of Chicago. And so I ended up becoming an area developer for the state, and then obviously a store owner here in North Scottsdale. And Lara is, very quickly, I realized this was definitely going to be a family venture, and she jumped in with both feet and is a store owner with me, and does pretty much everything you see around marketing and everything, including things like this presentation. So that's who we are. So just sort of a brief overview, and I'll be quick, is one of the things that we realized and that we really try and get out there is that mobility really has come a really long way in a short period of time. Part of when I first started looking into this industry or looking at other opportunities that really attracted me was the fact that I had a grandmother who passed last year at 103. And so she had a lot of falls, and she lived at home for quite some time up until the last 6 to 3 months with some care, but she was always in her home. And I kept thinking there has to be a better way. And Lara's father has Alzheimer's or dementia, and still has it. And what we found is that there were a lot of things that we did not know coming at it from the side of caring for someone. And so what we were trying to do is, we really relied at that point heavily on our caregivers to tell us, what products were available, what was out there, and what we could do. But we still felt kind of helpless. So we had ideas and things that we thought should be out there, and we, as a result, got into this business and were pleasantly surprised and amazed at everything that we saw. There's just a ton of things available from a mobility standpoint today that really helps improve the quality of life for both our customers and their caregivers. So we get a little bit into, who is Mobility Plus? So Mobility Plus is a collection of, we are now at 55 stores, or as we call them, owners throughout the US. And all of us are dedicated to helping people go where they want to go. It's a network where each person is embedded in their community. It's not like a big corporation that has a bunch of stores. Everyone is personally invested in their stores and in their area and their communities. We're really about problem solvers, trying to make things more accessible as opposed to just retailers. We're trying to solve a complete puzzle and problem, and really trying to improve somebody's quality of life and their safety through fall prevention. And that's why we always call even the people that work in our stores is we call them mobility consultants. And we sell, so there's a retail operation, we repair, we rent, and we install products. So we really carry the full suite of products as opposed to a lot of companies that might just do installs or others that might just, we might just sell. And so it really, we think, gives us the benefits of individually owned businesses that can be integrated within their community and really get to know the people that they're helping. But at the same time, we have the benefits of a larger company where we have great supplier relationships. We have a contract with the VA, and there's a lot of knowledge that we can tap into throughout the network. So that leads us a little bit to Mobility Plus North Scottsdale and our store here. So we opened in September of 2020. And we are located in the Air Park. So we're actually west of Hayden, just across from Costco, for those who know the Air Park area, but it's very close to the 101 and Frank Lloyd Wright. We have a very broad product selection, some of which you can see in the picture above. And our philosophy here is really about understanding our customers' needs. We spend a lot of time with the people who walk through the door. We're really a destination store. And for us, we always tell people that we're about educating them on what's available. So first, it's about them educating us on what their needs are, what their difficulties are. And then it's about us educating them on things that we think may help them today, things that might help them 6 months down the road or even 2 years down the road. So just trying to walk them through all that. And then finally, we focus on, as I said, like their needs for the customer, but also focus on the needs of the caregiver to make sure the caregiver is safe and taken care of as well. So our main product lines are scooters and power chairs, which I think are fairly common, lift chairs, ramps, both custom and portable. So we have portable ramps, like suitcase ramps, things of that nature, as well as custom ones that we can make, both commercial and residential. We have lifts, and that's a pretty broad category, but stair lifts, vertical platform lifts, patient lifts, pool lifts, so all different kinds of lifts. And then your normal wheelchairs, transport chairs, rollators, walkers, things like that. And then one other is fall prevention. And fall prevention for us is actually a big passion. Again, as I said, my grandmother, she fell a lot in her later years, and luckily she had very strong bones. But when we see things that, people believe that falling is a normal part of aging, we challenge that, and it's not, and it doesn't have to be, but we've come to accept it. And as a society, so we spend a lot of time on fall prevention and walk people through those products so that they know what exists there. And then obviously we have all the other typical DME type products as well. Some of the specialty offerings that we have that we do that are a little bit unique is we do in-home assessments. So we'll walk through a home. It's predominantly around fall prevention, but we also look at things that might make living in that space more comfortable. And we have automatic, for example, door openers. So we have customers that they want to get on their front door easily, especially when it's spring loaded, and we have automated door openers for that. But even for a sliding glass door, just to enjoy and again have a better quality of life, where we have products where you can use an RFID tag. One of our customers does that with a power wheelchair. So when they get close to their sliding glass door, it opens and they can just go into their backyard and enjoy the weather. We have patient lifts that will help protect the caregivers as well as the patient. Specialty beds like the one you see here that will literally articulate and help someone sit up so that people are able to get in and out of bed by themselves again. We do mobility tune-ups where we go out and we'll spend time in communities, just tightening brakes on, rollators, walkers, that kind of thing, checking out, the health of scooters and other power mobility devices, changing out batteries, etc. And we also have free classes and workshops where we try and target caregivers as well as some of our customers. So, you know, we have, for example, one of our latest classes was on how to safely transfer a patient. So we offer those here. And then presently we have 4 showrooms throughout the state of Arizona. So we opened on the 20th. We were the first. Since then, we have a total of 4, and we have 2 more coming in the spring. And then, you know, lastly, I just wanted to share with you, because I'm sure I probably ran over my time, but just some exciting news that we just recently got from Entrepreneur Magazine for the franchise is that the franchise overall, as I said, we're out of Chicago with 55 stores. We were ranked number 1 in mobility solutions for 2022 and number 8 in health and wellness. And so that's, to us, a huge achievement to achieve at, you know, the period of growth that we've had. So when I first joined on the I think in 2020 of February, there were only 20 stores. And then we opened ours in September. Now we have 55 throughout the country. So anyway, you can see our address here, and please, everybody, feel free to come and visit us just to see what we're about, email, call, etc. There's actually a tour of our store as well that's available online through Google, but we'd love to show you what we have. And we're always looking at ways to partner with people and to really create a community of, you know, people who care about, you know, people within this industry, people who need our products, as well as caregivers and those types of folks. So.
Thank you very much, Scott and Lara. You've provided valuable information for our home care agencies, and we appreciate your membership. And we certainly have come a long way with mobility aids. And also congratulations on your awards. That's great.
Thank you.
So again, a reminder that we are recording this session. So if you missed part of it, or you need to leave early for any reason, or need to reference it later, it will be posted on our website. So we are now going to move into our featured presenter, Veronica Santorelli. She is the CEO of Graasp Health, a medical cannabis delivery and education service in Arizona that caters to seniors and the medical community. For over 6 years, she has worked to give patients direct access to lab-tested cannabis products, dosing protocols, and trusted delivery experiences. She is passionate about how cannabis can safely manage a multitude of symptoms and has dedicated her career to serving seniors with chronic health conditions. Veronica, we welcome you. Thank you so much for being here and offering education in your area of expertise.
Thank you so much for having me, Laurel, and to your entire team. I really appreciate the opportunity. This is a topic I'm really passionate about as we look to break stigma surrounding this more natural approach to symptom control in chronic health conditions. So what we focus on is science-based education. So there is a lot of, for a long time, people thought that the medical benefits of cannabis were all anecdotal, and that's just not the case anymore. There's actually a lot of clinical evidence to draw upon. And so we are very science-based at our company. So there's a lot of researchers and doctors doing research all around the world on the best dosing strategies for specific health conditions. So that's what we do. We provide delivery of medical cannabis to patients at home who are homebound and can't, walk into a dispensary. We help them get a medical card because home delivery is only legal currently for medical patients. Recreational delivery won't be approved till probably like 2023 to 2025. Dosing recommendations for people that are using cannabis to feel better. We help them with dosing recommendations and then just provide that ongoing support. And then we also help with compliance regulations. There's a lot of misinformation about the legalities of cannabis. So we make sure that everyone that we're working with is compliant with all regulations. So let's just cover a few that are pertinent to home care. We live in a state that has a medical program and a recreational program right now. And a lot of people thought that the recreational program completely replaced the medical program, and that's not the case. There are a lot of important protections for medical patients, anti-discrimination laws. Medical patients are allowed to get more potent products than recreational patients, recreational users. People with a medical card, medical users also save a lot of money on their medicine. They don't have to pay that very expensive recreational sale excise tax on their cannabis. So there's a lot of reasons why people are still getting a medical card and why that medical program is important. From a regulatory standpoint, with caregivers in your care or working for you, if there are any caregivers on the call today, one of the most common misconceptions that we have had over the past few years is that caregivers couldn't help assist a medical patient. We had caregivers, we spoke to caregivers that were scared to even be around a patient that was medicating with cannabis. They thought that they would face some sort of legal repercussion. Well, this is the law that protects any type of health worker, anywhere from physicians to social workers to caregivers to nurses. So this is the law under Title 36, Public Health and Safety, under Chapter 28.1. This talks about protections for physicians, where if a physician writes a recommendation for somebody to get certified for a medical card because they believe that that patient would benefit therapeutically from cannabis, that physician cannot face any penalty for that. No person can be subject to arrest, prosecution, or penalty in any manner for providing paraphernalia, for being in the presence or vicinity of the medical use of marijuana, or for assisting a registered patient with administering marijuana. So most home care companies don't, assist with administration of cannabis. I know that a lot of times you're there to assist with ADLs or, other needs in that are related to home care. But sometimes, helping somebody unscrew a tincture bottle or helping somebody, a patient unseal their package, again, you're completely protected under the law. And this is the regulation that does point to that. So there's a very strong precedent for caregivers, nurses administering cannabis just like any other drug. It's different than the pharmaceutical industry, right? We don't have a lot of the same protocols that the pharmaceutical industry has, or the same accessibility to certain things under the law. But there's a lot of forms that cannabis can be provided in and administered in. Tinctures are one of them, edibles, topical creams. So there may be needs where a caregiver might just assist a patient so that they can use it effectively and safely. And for anybody out there that's kind of confused about the terminology, let me just kind of review the terminology, because there's a lot of confusion that we see with patients. Like, they're confused, like, what's the difference between marijuana and hemp? Or what's the difference between marijuana and CBD? Well, the reality is that it's all the same plant. There's just different species of the same plant that are grown for different purposes. Okay, so that picture to the left is the hemp plant. Okay, and that plant is grown specifically for that very big, thick, fibrous stalk. That stalk can be used for lots of things. It can be used for, to replace plastics and textiles and a lot of things that are more environmentally friendly. This stalk is also very high in CBD. So CBD is just one of the chemicals of that plant. The actual scientific term for this plant is cannabis sativa. So marijuana is a propaganda term. So the hemp plant on the left is specifically hemp just because it's grown for that big, thick stalk. Whereas another cannabis plant to the right, that plant is specifically grown for the bud of the plant or the flower of the plant. So it's traditionally thought of as marijuana, is the actual flower or bud of the plant. So between those big, broad leaves, you see these dense buds growing. And those are, again, what's traditionally thought of as marijuana. If somebody was going to grind it up and roll it up, that's the part of the plant, the flower, that they would inhale. But a lot of our patients don't want to smoke, they have COPD, or, they just don't want to affect their lungs. They might have lung cancer. And so what's very popular for the geriatric population is extracting the chemicals off that plant and infusing them into edibles, oils, but that's the part of the plant that they are extracting from to get those chemicals. Now, the chemicals of this plant, there's hundreds in this plant. Cannabinoids are the scientific term for CBD and for THC. So THC, CBD, those are the two we will speak of the most because they're the most well-known. They've been the most researched over the years, but there's more coming out that we're researching, like CBG and CBN, but those are called cannabinoids. We talked about hemp. The hemp is just the stalk of the plant that's high in CBD. CBD is the chemical that does not cause a high. And then there's the flower, like we talked about, arguably the most medicinal part of the plant. So CBD, cannabidiol, okay, this we're talking about all over the place right now. CBD, one of the reasons that CBD is everywhere right now is it passed clinical trials for seizure disorders in young children. CBD also got approved to be grown under the Farm Act. So now CBD is federally legal. It's been completely removed from the schedule list. And there's a lot of medicinal benefits to CBD. First of all, it's a very powerful anti-inflammatory agent. It's an anxiolytic, it reduces anxiety. It's a neuroprotectant. It calms the nerves, it's a nervine. It's an antidepressant. It's an anticonvulsant, it controls seizure activity. There are anti-cancer properties to CBD. And it's non-intoxicating. It does not cause a high. You can take 1,000 milligrams of CBD and you're not going to get a high or euphoric effect from it. And this is really important. It balances or reduces the intoxicating effects of THC. So when you're using THC, you could get high from that, but if you have CBD involved, you're going to get less high. And that's important for people that don't want to, they just want to feel better. They don't want to get high. They just want to feel better. And that's about clinical use. That's a big difference between recreational use and clinical use. So when we're talking about helping people with medical conditions, CBD is typically involved somewhere. And there's a lot of places people can purchase CBD right now. You can get it probably on the side of the street at the farmer's market or, in your local gas station. Do we recommend that? No. CBD, there's pharmaceutical grade CBD now. There's medical grade, which is what we sell from a licensed dispensary. There's over the counter that you can find at, say, Walgreens. And then there's don't get it because there's snake oil out there. We don't recommend buying it over the internet. It should always, the snake oil is oil that comes without a lab test where you have no idea how much CBD is in it. You don't know if there's other heavy metals or toxins in it. When you're getting it from a licensed producer here in Arizona, like from a licensed dispensary, you're getting a medical grade product because it's mandated. The health department mandates that it's lab tested. So if you see any of your clients using CBD, it should be from a licensed producer, ideally here in Arizona, or a trusted national brand. THC is the other chemical compound that we talk about a lot. Now, THC is the controlled substance. Prior to last November, you had to have a medical card to access THC. Now people can walk into a dispensary and access it if they're over 21. But if people are walking into a recreational dispensary and expecting health advice, you're probably not going to find it too readily. because there are a lot of people that want to use THC for the medical benefits of it. So the pharmacological actions of THC, it's the strongest pain reliever of the plant. Some people say that they can use CBD for pain, but they would have to use very high doses of CBD. With THC, you can use very small doses and get the pain relief that you're looking for. It is a very strong sedative. It induces sleep. That's one of the reasons I use it. I have a lot of trouble sleeping. It's phenomenal as a sedative. It's an antiemetic. It decreases nausea and vomiting. It's an antidepressant. It's an antispasmodic. It reduces muscle spasms. It's an appetite stimulant. We've all heard the munchies. You know, for some people it's a side effect, and for other people they use it specifically for that purpose. That's why a lot of oncology or cancer patients are referred to us. There are anti-tumoral and anti-cancer properties to THC, and it can be intoxicating. It doesn't have to be intoxicating, right? If you're using, you know, a milligram of THC and much higher milligrams of CBD, you're not going to feel that THC. But if you're using just THC, you might get high from it. Some people want to get high, right? That's why there's a recreational program, but some people hate the way that THC makes them feel. You know, we have patients that have severe pain, but they get dizzy and they don't like the way THC makes them feel. So we might be, you know, recommending a 50 milligram dose of CBD with just a tiny bit of THC, like maybe 1 to 5 milligrams for that patient. When you combine those two, the CBD suppresses the THC, and the THC, though, does help to control that pain. So again, clinical use is finding the right ratio for someone's specific needs. There are a lot of methods of administration when it comes to cannabis. There's edibles, there's oils. Edibles take longer to break down in the system. They can take up to 2 hours, but 30 minutes to an hour is pretty common. But the edibles are where people have the most issues as far as a bad experience, because they might eat a small amount, but then not wait a long enough time for it to fully take effect in their system. So they might eat another piece too soon and then get hit doubly with the effects. And so we always say, you know, if you're experimenting with cannabis for the first time, wait at least 2 hours before dosing again. Oils are great. They can be taken sublingually, added to food, topicals, suppositories. And of course, for people at home, they could have the option of inhalation as a method of administration. You know, it's immediate, and you can feel the effects within seconds, but it's not for everybody, right? Some people just do not want to inhale their medicine. So they might be using edibles and oils, a topical cream and an oil. Sometimes for people with really serious conditions, they require a couple different methods of administration to achieve the best effects. So why is clinical cannabis specifically good for home care? Well, first of all, when it works well for somebody, it often manages multiple symptoms. So somebody could be using it for pain, but then they also sleep better. So they don't have to take that Ambien anymore. Or, you know, they might have be using it for insomnia, but they might also have gastrointestinal issues, and it helps calm their gastrointestinal issues as well. So it helps to manage multiple symptoms. It has a very high safety profile. You know, you're not going to overdose on cannabis and die like you can from an opioid. Okay, it just doesn't happen. It's also, people are less prone to be a fall risk using the right ratio of cannabis versus some of these other benzodiazepines or antidepressants or other pharmaceuticals that have shown in the research to cause fall risks. They work safely and synergistically with opioids. Another very common misconception is that you can't use opioids and cannabis together. The research actually shows that you can greatly decrease the effects, the dose of the opioid as you introduce low dose cannabis. And the cannabis actually helps the opioid work more effectively and increase the pain relieving properties of the opioid. From the research, we see that most patients do report an improved quality of life when they're using cannabis. And it interacts not only with opioids, but it interacts safely with other medications. And then specifically, again, for home care, we know that a lot of home care agencies are working with the dementia population and working to keep those residents home longer, right? And so what we're seeing is tremendous benefits in the dementia population to reduce the agitated behaviors, which allows caregivers to provide those activities of daily life without fighting and resistance. So that's huge. We know that, challenges with agitation from dementia and agitation from other conditions is a huge risk for home care. Specifically with dementia, what we're seeing is it's helping the worst of the sundowning behaviors, addressing the anxiety, the agitation and aggressiveness, the insomnia and sleep disorders that happen and nighttime disturbances that happen at night, the eating behaviors, social behaviors, any unexpressed pain or inflammation that resident might have, pacing or ambulating, depression, fear, and emotional outbursts. So we're seeing cannabis alleviate a lot of these symptoms, specifically in the dementia population. And when we look at how caregivers are affected by behaviors, when we see the light bulb go off, it's typically, as far as how cannabis might help, it's typically with anybody working with dementia patients, right? That are progressed in their disease and are fighting self-care, right? The caregivers, whether it's, a self-caregiver at home, a parent, a wife, a husband, a grandchild, or the employee that's a caregiver, even the owner, we know sometimes owners of home care agencies are having to step in because of the shortage of caregivers and provide that self-care. Well, if you have somebody that normally bites and kicks and fights when you're trying to shower or change your toilet or help with toiletry needs, if you know that that's going to be a known difficult time, a dose of cannabis can be given an hour before, and suddenly that resident or patient or just person that you're trying to help is much more amenable to that care. We've seen everything from helping it reduce aggression, biting, shoving, pulling at plants, destroying furniture, nighttime disturbances, keeping them calm at night so they're not wandering at night or getting up and potentially creating a fall risk. And then for our employees, right, caregivers don't want to go into work if they're dealing with severely agitated patients or people. If you can control that for your caregivers, they're going to be less prone to getting injured on the job. You're going to keep them longer, and you're going to avoid workers' comp cases. So this is actually one of the very first dementia patient that we were referred. She was in a community. Her husband did try to keep her home as long as possible. I think if he had been able to introduce cannabis a lot sooner at the very beginning of her diagnosis, he probably would have been able to keep her home there longer. But let me just share this because it kind of speaks to everything I just talked about with dementia.
My wife was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. As the disease progressed, she became increasingly agitated and aggressive. Part of the problem was that she turned out to be allergic to antipsychotics. So we were to the point where we're getting desperate in terms of our abilities to control her behaviors. And one of the doctors said, hey, why don't you try medical marijuana as an option? So we were able to get a prescription for it. Graasp turned out to be a godsend. She's no longer aggressive. Her anxiety levels are down. She's eating more, so she's going back in the right direction. What you have to try to do is make it as painless as possible, make their lives as rewarding as you possibly can before it ends. And this has helped.
So, before the community tried cannabis, Anne had been moved around to 6 different communities because she was so aggressive. So that's where I think if it had been introduced earlier, she would have been able to stay with just home care coming into the home a lot longer. Now, this is a case where he was at home. Leo was able to stay at home because of the benefits that cannabis brought.
Back in 2005, Leo was driving and was hit by a semi truck. He was catapulted and he landed on his head. He had to relearn everything: how to speak, how to use a fork, just how to live. Leo would take pharmaceuticals for anxiety, for OCD, sleeplessness, joint pain, muscle pain. It's just all over. I have spent over a decade trying to find a way for Leo to have a better life, and pharmaceuticals weren't it. And so I Googled medicinal marijuana delivery, and Graasp popped up. And I found a relief for all these different ailments in one simple product. It's a godsend. Live a day in my life. Live 2 days, one with pharmaceuticals and one with medicinal marijuana, and see which one you prefer. I can't sing the praises high enough because it's given me life.
So, and both Kim and Roger were people that did not believe in the benefits of medical marijuana at all. Roger was a conservative politician that voted against the cannabis program year after year because he just thought it was a Trojan horse for the recreational movement. And again, it was the only thing that helped calm his wife down and stop her from being overly agitated. For Kim and Leo, Kim came from, school teachers and principals in her family. And so she was always taught, of course, like the rest of us, that marijuana was bad, and, only spoke about the potential harms of it, where, again, her husband, as you saw, had so many different symptoms that needed to be alleviated. And cannabis helped with, 5 or 6 of them, and replaced a lot of those pharmaceuticals that were actually causing some of his agitation. And this was a man that would lash out and be verbally abusive and inappropriate with caregivers. And cannabis really helped change all of that. So, so there are perfect candidates for cannabis. Some people, especially in your care, probably have those comorbidities. These are some specific clinical case studies where we've seen cannabis help manage those behaviors and improve the quality of life for both the patients and the caregivers. So the first one is a severe agitation. There was an 80-year-old man with dementia. He was a former physician. His son was actually in pain management, but believed in the benefits of cannabis. And we had gotten a call from his nurse that he was potentially going to be admitted into a psychiatric hospital because he was being so aggressive with caregivers. And so she was like, you got to get this oil here, or I'm sending him out to Jerry Psych. So we were able to make an emergency delivery. We started with an oil that was an equal ratio of CBD to THC. And luckily it had an immediate calming effect. What we've seen from pure CBD products is there isn't such a strong effect, but when you add in THC, you're able to see that immediate effect very, very quickly. And we did it, the dose was increased over time. He went from, 0.5 3 times a day to 1 milliliter 3 times a day. And he was able to remain on 3 milliliters a day with a PRN dose until he passed away. And he did pass away in the same community, and he was able to stay there. And again, I think that he was placed into a community because he was so agitated, but his family was trying to care for him at home a lot longer, and they would have wanted to keep him home. So if what we see in home care is you are losing your census to people that can no longer care for their loved ones at home with a dementia diagnosis because of their behaviors. If they're able to introduce cannabis sooner, you may be able to keep that census up and make the life of your caregiver so much better. The second case study also is severe agitation and violence from another person with Alzheimer's disease. This gentleman was an 82-year-old male. He was doing everything from pulling up plants and throwing furniture through windows, lashing out at caregivers, also spent time in a behavioral hospital. He started out on a 0.5 milliliter, again, of a 1-to-1 oil, and then increased to a full milliliter. And then we also added in small doses of an edible. And he was able to titrate off of other meds, and he was basically, the cannabis replaced about 8 other meds that they felt was actually increasing his agitation, a lot of the antipsychotics like Seroquel. And he was able to stay on. Now, the more agitated patients do require a slightly higher dose of cannabis, but he was able to replace all of those other meds and stay on that dose. Once we found that dose that calmed him, he was able to stay on that dose until end of life. This other case study actually was more the type of dementia that's more paranoia, anxiety, minimal agitation, but definitely the sundowning behaviors were more anxiety and OCD. And this gentleman is 102 years old. You know, and the way he expressed his anxiety was through financial fear and paranoia, feeling like somebody was stealing his money, incessantly calling his son, worried about theft. He would have occasional agitation when he was triggered, but it wasn't the predominant symptom. It was more the anxiety that we were trying to lessen. He was experiencing weight loss, he had loss of appetite, and he would have a lot of nighttime disturbances. He was slightly sensitive to medication, so we started him on a higher CBD oil, because if you remember, CBD is phenomenal for anxiety. So we have the higher CBD for anxiety, and then the small amount of THC for his agitation. And so we started him out on a very low dose, just 1/4 milliliter with a PRN dose, which was 1.6 milligrams of THC to 6.6 milligrams of CBD. And after the first week, the caregivers reported less anxiety, less paranoia, decreased agitation, better sleeping and eating behaviors, you know, less phone calls to their son, and just overall easier to care for. And he's remained on that low dose since July. So let's talk about perfect candidates for cannabis. I mean, obviously, we just covered all of those case studies were dementia. But there's other people that can benefit. So the people that we're predominantly working with, I mean, they do have a qualifying condition or comorbidities. Here in Arizona, in order to even get qualified for a medical card, you have to have one of these conditions. So severe and chronic pain, cancer, glaucoma, AIDS or HIV, hepatitis C, ALS, Crohn's disease, agitation from Alzheimer's or another dementia, wasting syndrome, severe nausea, seizures, anything that causes severe and persistent muscle spasms. So we're seeing Parkinson's, Huntington's, and MS quite a bit, and then PTSD. So, you know, again, a lot of people have comorbidities, and we're seeing benefits for a lot of these conditions. And all of these conditions do have published research on them. So this is just some of the published research on dementia. Some of the research points to the fact that cannabinoids can help remove the amyloid plaque buildup known to be found in Alzheimer's. And then a lot of these other studies show the safety and effectiveness of cannabis for treating the neuropsychiatric symptoms associated with dementia, calming nighttime disturbances. So we're seeing it in the field, and then this is the research that just backs that up. For chronic pain, you know, look, we know that you're not, you know, physicians are typically, you know, the ones that are making these calls, but it's really the caregivers that you're the ones that are there seeing the patient, working with these patients day in and day out. Between you and the liaisons, you are the ones that are seeing what's effective and what's not. You know, and if you're helping and caring for somebody that is not having good results from their pain management regimen, you know, they may be a great candidate for cannabis. You know, what we do find is when all else fails or is not working that effectively, cannabis can sometimes be that one thing that really helps them. And sometimes it can be completely life-changing in a positive way. And then sometimes it doesn't work, right? Cannabis is not a magic pill. It doesn't work the same way for everyone. We've had a lot of success with the dementia population, but sometimes it doesn't work. You know, sometimes people have adverse reactions to cannabis. It's kind of a bell curve where we expect to have a reaction or symptom reduction for most people, maybe 90%, 70%. And then there's the outliers. But you can definitely tell that somebody might be a good candidate if they have, so these are the screening tactics, right? If you have somebody that's in chronic pain and they have unsustainable opioid use, right? They've been giving the max of opioids and they're still complaining that they're in pain all the time. Sometimes that low dose of cannabis can kick in the analgesic properties of that opioid better, and actually get them the relief that they're looking for. Maybe they have opioid-induced hyperalgesia or unwanted side effects from their pain management regimen. Maybe their opioids are causing stomach ulcers or agitation or nausea. Maybe they can feel like they're getting addicted and don't want to get addicted to opioids. Maybe they have difficult to treat pain like fibromyalgia or neuropathy that their pharmaceuticals they've been prescribed have never touched. Maybe they are in a really bad mood and have a poor quality of life. They're not sleeping. You know, one thing that we see from this research, and these links below are all published research. And if anybody wants to see any of the scientific research surrounding the efficacy, I'm happy to send it to you. But one of the big things that we see reported by patients using cannabis in all of the studies is that people report an improved quality of life. They're sleeping better, they're eating better, they're less anxious, they're getting along with loved ones better. You know, whereas we see with opioid use, it can often go the opposite way. What cannabis does is it promotes homeostasis. So it helps to bring balance to people that are out of balance. So those are the screening tactics for somebody that has a chronic pain diagnosis. For somebody that you are caring for that has a movement disorder, like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's disease or Huntington's disease. Well, if those patients have unwanted side effects from their pharmaceuticals, or maybe their pharmaceuticals really aren't controlling their symptoms. You know, maybe their muscle spasms are still out of control, or they're not getting their muscle spasms controlled with an ALS diagnosis, multiple sclerosis. Cannabis, there's a ton of research showing the benefits for ALS and multiple sclerosis. Maybe they have insomnia or poor appetite, or again, that quality of life. Maybe they're in a bad mood all the time. You know, there is a euphoric effect to THC. It's called the bliss molecule for a reason. That's why people use it recreationally. So the euphoric effect in a medical patient is not always a bad thing if they are in pain and you know, are losing sleep. You know, that euphoric effect plus sleeping better, less agitation, all of it leads to a better quality of life. And then there's a lot of research that backs that up. Screening tactics for cancer. We get a ton of referrals from oncologists. The side effects from chemo and radiation are very well known, right? People undergoing chemo and radiation often lose way too much weight because they lose their taste for food. Everything tastes like sawdust. They have a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of potentially pain involved. So cannabis can help alleviate a lot of those side effects for somebody undergoing treatment, along with the fact that there are anti-cancer properties to cannabis that can help make for a more effective treatment plan for people that are undergoing these traditional modalities. And then again, better quality of life. And again, all this published research is peer-reviewed from PubMed, NIH. So with clinical cannabis, right, if people are using it recreationally, they can walk into a recreational dispensary. But for medical people, if they have medical needs, if they want to understand how cannabis the right ratio can help their chronic health condition, well, that's when they can schedule a health consultation. We get referred, people all the time, and we set up that health consultation, and we just make sure that they have a condition that that has evidence pointing to it. We help them get a medical card. We help them with product and dosing recommendations. We deliver to them, and then we're there to make sure that it's working. And for feedback, if they need other products or other dosing strategies, we give them that support that they need. If anybody has any questions or needs help with anything, you certainly can reach out to me.
Veronica, you've given us a lot to think about when it comes to alternative therapies for many reasons, and also for the dementia and Alzheimer's clients. Thank you for spending time with us today. And now we will open it up for any questions. You can either put them in the chat, or I believe that Linda will unmute everybody in case anybody has any questions. In the meantime, while people are maybe getting to that point of getting up guts to ask questions, I do have one. You did cover a little bit about cancer, and I was wondering, does the medical field allow someone to do the cannabis while they're undergoing treatments, chemotherapy?
They do. Yeah. A lot of oncologists will recommend it. And we knew that was happening. And that's actually one of the reasons that oncologists were the first group of physicians that we tried to interface with, because we were seeing that, you know, maybe not from an institutional level, right? These oncology units would not put it on their website, like, we support cannabis, right? But a physician might say to their patient, hey, you should go try this. And so, you know, what we were finding is this patient would find their way to a dispensary. They'd usually, for some reason, they were always given a brownie. I don't know why. And they would eat the whole brownie and then hallucinate and have just a really poor experience and feel like they never wanted to try it again. So what we wanted to say is, hey, you know, they should also be using CBD. They should be taking a quarter of that brownie, and the brownie is probably not the right product for them anyway. It has sugar in it. You know, they should be using an oil underneath their tongue that has CBD in it. So again, it's you know, we definitely know that oncologists are recommending it during treatment. It's just that there needs to be more guidance.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, it's Barb. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can, Barb.
Okay, I was just curious about first psychiatrists and like SMI and behavioral health diagnoses. Has there been any research on that?
A ton of research. Yeah, there's a lot of research happening right now with CBD and anxiety, bipolar, schizophrenia. A lot of different neuropsychiatric conditions are being researched right now.
So,
and there's a lot published.
okay, great. And then my other question, I've got so many questions, but I'll just keep it to a couple. For nursing homes, for the SNFs, the skilled nursing facilities, the assisted livings, you know, people that have anxiety and whatnot, and they're being treated with, like you said, Seroquel and all sorts of other, you know, stuff. Has there been any, you know, proactiveness to get the PCPs that are in SNF, SALFs, et cetera, to maybe like look at this research and, you know, make better quality life for some of our members that are in facilities?
Yes. You know, it often takes a champion, right? So a lot of the nurses that we're working with in assisted living are a lot of times the champions. And there are physicians, like we have a lot of mobile doctors that are going into SNFs that are, you know, that do want to recommend this. It often does depend on the executive director and then sometimes the overall corporation. So for example, like Avenir Memory Care is a large, you know, group that we started working with. And I worked with the president to change their overall corporate policy to allow this in their communities. But, you know, and at first they were saying no, but it took a resident actually demanding it. They had a former NFL player that was extremely aggressive. And so sometimes it comes from a family member demanding it. Sometimes it's a nurse within the community, sometimes a mobile doctor going into the SNFs. And then sometimes a large, skilled nursing group will just say, absolutely no, we're just not going to do this. This is our decision corporate wide. And unfortunately, there's not, you try to affect change. You try to get in touch with them. Brookdale has a national policy that does allow it. So there's the Silverado. I mean, Silverado left Arizona, but they were taken over and bought by Auberge. So, there are larger institutions that are very pro, and then there's some that need to get with the times, right? And we're trying to get in front of them and educate them. We did recently have an interaction with a skilled nursing group who the executive director was pro, the resident had a medical card. He was trying to order just edibles, and we were trying to make the delivery, and they were preventing him access. They're actually out of compliance with the law. They were violating his rights, but the community actually has the right to say, no, we're not going to allow this. The resident could have sued, but of course the resident's sick. They're not going to, so it's a major issue. There have been laws like Medicare and Medicaid have passed guidance down that there's no interference from from the federal government. They're not going to affect reimbursements. There's a law under the federal government that says the federal government cannot interfere with state-run cannabis programs and organizations following their state-run cannabis program. So all of these skilled nursing, hospital systems, assisted livings, they're all legally allowed to do it. It's just they need to decide to. But good question. And again, we've helped change corporate policies. So, there's just a lot of misinformation and fear. These institutions feel like they're going to face reimbursement issues. It's not the case. They're not, they legally can't. There's protections under the federal government, but it's just a matter of educating them and affecting change. And, a lot of people still are based in stigma and would rather just have a blanket no instead of looking at the evidence and doing the work it takes to make change.
Thank you very much, Veronica. Do we have any other questions, Linda, that you can see?
No, I don't see any other questions at all.
I don't either.
Hey,
Okay, thank you.
it's Barb again. I could ask one more.
Okay, Barb.
It's okay. With the opioid crisis, is there any research on like tapering off the opioids? I know there's lots of bad reactions for people that have used it for so long. Any type of taper off with the opioids and the marijuana or cannabis or whatever?
Yeah, there are some protocols out there. I believe Dr. Sulak, Ralph, how's your dog doing? Dr. Sulak is a member of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians. The Society of Cannabis Clinicians is an organization that kind of gathers researchers and scientists and physicians from all over the world that are researching this and using it in their everyday practice. Our company is a member of the Society of Cannabis Clinicians, which is how we stay up to date on a lot of the newly released research. And so I believe it was Dr. Sulak that released the opioid protocols for titrating off of opioids and as you increase low dose cannabis. I can try to find that for you. If you want to email me, I can see what I can dig up for you.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for your questions.
Okay, thank you very much again, Veronica. The AZNHA Board of Directors want to thank all of you for participating today. We do not yet have our speaker for February, but please watch for your MailChimp announcement in your inbox for who we choose for our February session. We look forward to all of you participating on the February call. Thank you again. We wish you a great afternoon and that you find joy in each day.
Thank you, Laurel.
Thank you.
Veronica, thank you so much for your information today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.